Hey guys, Chris here from Gold Coast, Australia. Today's video is about, is the location independent lifestyle for you? We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons of the lifestyle and dispel a few myths that you might have heard, a few misconceptions, so that you can have a better, understanding of what it is and whether you want to get into it. So this video is inspired by Life in Chiang Mai, who left a comment on my YouTube video, Life Outside of Nimman, wanting to know more about the pros and cons of being a digital nomad and living this lifestyle. So to quickly sum it up, the location independent lifestyle or the digital nomad lifestyle is one where you can work anywhere using a computer, and you can basically travel as much or as little as you want. Basically, you can be location independent and not travel at all, but for the purposes of this video, the location independent lifestyle, I'm basically talking about being a digital nomad, working online, and moving around from place to place every now and then. Now, the title of this video is the location independent lifestyle for me? And the reason why it's called that is because it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to mix the two, wants to mix travel and work. There are challenges on the road that you guys should be aware of before, stepping into this or, thinking that this is the life for you. All right, to start us off, I want to get you guys on the right page. So what I'm going to do is start with two big questions you need to ask yourself before you even, take up this lifestyle or consider pursuing it. And the first question is, are you ready and willing to work your ass off to achieve location independence? Because, some people it does come too easy, but for the most part, it's hard. It's hard work. It's a bit of a myth that, being a digital nomad is just a constant holiday and you're not having to work, or that you stay in these cheap places and it's easy. For some people, they've engineered it or they've got the perfect lifestyle set up. But for you starting out, initially, you're probably going to have to work really hard to get in a really comfortable position. It's like anything in life. The location independent lifestyle is not a free lunch. You still have to work. And like I said, if you've got your things in order, sometimes it is. Like I did a podcast interview, which I'll link below, with a good friend of mine, Guido, and he has nothing but good things to say about, being a digital nomad. But the difference is he built up an experience of multiple years of, working as a developer. And then he's able to use that experience to get an employer back home that'll hire him for 3 days a week, pay him good money, and he basically lives in Thailand on the cheap, earning good money back home, and life is great. But in that same episode, we talked to Marjet, Guido's girlfriend, who hasn't built a career as a developer over many years. And so she's just getting started. And for her, it's a lot harder. For somebody who's had a location-dependent career and done stuff that's not digital at all, it's going to take a bit of time to transition into that. It's not going to be as simple as jumping on Upwork and getting high-paid work straight away for most people. And that's what I try to do with my digital nomad vlogs. Is the biggest theme of the digital nomad vlogs are us working, and that's what I want to show, is that you can work remotely and travel. It's not us going on tours all day every day and lying by the beach. I separate those videos into separate travel vlogs. Those are kind of like our weekends, but during the week we work very hard. In fact, I've been known to be at Pun Space for 12 hours a day, pushing it out, working on client stuff during the day, and then at night working on this project, the Freelancer project. So I work harder than I probably need to by having my own project, but I'm highly passionate about it, and I'm inspired to work. So that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is like, why go away and live this lifestyle if you just have to work harder. Well, it's different. You're working more for yourself. There's more independence. There's more freedom. There's more flexibility, and those are some of the things that I'll go into in the pros and cons section. Question number 2 is, are you willing to forego all the physical possessions that you hold? Maybe it's your big TV, maybe it's your Xbox, maybe it's your boat, maybe it's things that you just can't take with you traveling. It's not going to be practical for long-term travel. Can you give those up? Because I know that Denise and I, it was a real struggle even to get luggage into 2 big suitcases and 2 like pretty good backpacks. I thought at the start of the year that we were becoming minimalist, but even that is not really minimalist. It's still a lot of stuff, and that we've had to cart around this whole year. And we are going to downsize next year, but that means that we, can't have as many things. And if you do decide to travel with a lot of things, you're going to have to deal with that with just transport and paying the fees on the airlines for multiple bags. Look, you're not going to be able to take absolutely everything with you. So if you can deal with that, if you can be somewhat of a minimalist, then that's okay. You can continue to live this lifestyle. But if you have things like these physical possessions that you just can't live without, and they're just too big to fit in the suitcase, or it's just going to be impractical to travel with, unfortunately, that's a big consideration that you need to think of before you go living a nomadic lifestyle. All right, so now that those questions are out of the way, let's talk about the pros and cons of this lifestyle. So let's talk about the pros first. The pros are pretty obvious. The number one thing that I love about it is the travel and the flexibility of being able to move from place to place. For example, here in Australia, I was living about an hour away from here in a city called Brisbane, and minimum lease you can get on an apartment there would probably be 6 months if you're lucky, but more likely to be 12 months. So you're tied into a contract, and you're basically stuck there for a year. You take a job, it's a location-dependent job, and you're expected to work there, pay your dues for a certain amount of time. You can't just pack up and leave every, 2 months. So, places we stay like Chiang Mai, anywhere in Thailand, Bali, these places we can come in for a month, we can come in for 2 weeks. We're not obliged to, stay there. In fact, we're tourists in those countries. We can't stay there for a really long time without doing a border run or a visa run. And, that's a negative as well that I'll talk about. But the positive of that is just this unrivaled flexibility and freedom to travel whenever you want and not be tied down to any one place. Another pro of the location independent lifestyle is maybe you don't necessarily need to travel, but you want to get out of a situation you have in your life here, or maybe you found it the more appropriate life overseas. For example, you might want to be an expat rather than, say, a digital nomad and run an online business and stay in the one place. Like, we met a few people in Chiang Mai who were there for multiple years. Are they digital nomads? Where the definition of nomadic, turns to expat, I'm not quite sure. But if you want to have, an online business or work online in order to choose where you want to live and just live somewhere outside your home country, you have that flexibility, you have that choice as well. The third pro, of course, is geo-arbitrage, and especially coming from a country where the minimum wage is high, the currency is strong, like Australia and other Western countries, you can really leverage your currency to live like a king, as they say, in other places, like Thailand, Malaysia, Bali. A small wage back home might be considered like a huge wage in those countries, so you can take advantage of that. It's called geo-arbitrage, and that manifests in things like living in Chiang Mai where the cost of living is low, and you can go to expensive dinners every night. Like, an expensive dinner in Chiang Mai is 10 to 15 US dollars. That's like really expensive in Chiang Mai. But for here, an expensive dinner would be like, I don't know, 25 US dollars or more. There's no limit. And another thing is just independence, in your business as well. Like, if you freelance, you can, for the large part, you can choose when to work. If you don't want to work for a client anymore, you can just do that. You can work wherever you want if you've set it up right, which you probably have if you're moving around as a digital nomad. And just being able to choose who you work with, where you work, what times you work. There's different levels of that in terms of what job you have or what career you have, but just being able to control your own schedule, control where you stay, have that independence and kind of own your own business, even if you're working for somebody else. So some of the cons of the lifestyle. One big one that I found is you can't find a job on the ground. So oftentimes, when you're a digital nomad, most of the time you are on a tourist visa, and those tourist visas do not allow you to do business or have a job in that actual country. So you're always restricted to making money online. And sometimes, you know, you may want to actually have a physical job in a physical location. You know, sometimes when I'm in Australia and I want a bit of extra cash, I can go drive Uber. I can't do that even though Uber exists overseas. I can't do that because I'm not legally allowed to work in that country. So it's a good thing in a way, having the restriction that you can only work online, but bad in another way that maybe you do want to have a job on the ground. But unfortunately, as a tourist and moving around often, it's going to be hard to do that. And just on the tourist thing, another con is that you have to move even if you don't want to. So, you know, nomads have to do things called border runs and visa runs, which is basically, a border run is when it says on your visa that you have to leave, but you can come straight back. And a visa run is, you know, you leave the country to go get another visa to re-enter. And for people that have been doing, like, staying in the one place for a long time, this gets really frustrating, having to go for 2 to 3 months in a place and then having to leave and having to come back. So you have to do minimum 3 trips a year, and also like extend. I'm talking about Thailand specifically with the 3-month thing, but certain countries, you know, you might only be able to stay there a month. You might have, there's a zone in the European Union where you can only travel 3 months every 6 months. So kind of stuff like that is like, if you get settled and you don't want to travel, you're still a tourist, so you still have to move around. The third con is something that affects a lot of people, and that's transient relationships. So you're traveling, or maybe you're staying in the one place, but you know, a majority of the people you're going to meet, they're going to be traveling as well. And so you might make great friends, you might meet people that you really like, and then, you know, 2 weeks later, they're off to somewhere else. And, you know, that can be a positive as well, because maybe you're traveling to some, you know, other place and, oh, look who's there. It's a friend who you met, you know, in another place. And we've had that multiple times where we've met people in one place and then bumped into them in a completely different city somewhere else in Asia. So that does happen, but, you know, you're not always going to have the same friends around you most of the time unless you hang out with expats and stay in the one place. But if you're moving around a lot, you know, it's a big issue of this transient relationships, and especially for romantic relationships, this can be a really big issue, because what happens if you find a lady friend or a male friend that you really like, and, you know, maybe you want to get serious about it, but then what happens? She's going this direction, he's going that direction. What can you do, you know? Another one is being away from your friends and family. This is something that my girlfriend Denise deals with a lot. She feels the need to be close to her family, and so depending on how far away, we're just in Asia, so it's not too far away, but we're planning to go to Europe next year, and to be that far away from your family for a long period of time, it may not be something that you want to do. So that's a consideration as well. Another con, which actually somebody messaged me in a private message and you know, talked to me about this, is the benefits you get from having a job. So like, this is more prevalent in the United States, where, you know, you'll get your 401k and you'll get your health insurance as a part of your package of your employment. And oftentimes those benefits can be way too expensive to pay for outside of a job, you know, for those Americans. We're quite fortunate in Australia that we do have a lot of public benefits, but especially while I'm traveling, you know, my health insurance isn't going to cover me if I get sick and end up at a Thai hospital, for example, which is what happened this year. I had to contact my travel insurance, which is another tip, is to get travel insurance. But in terms of benefits, you have to manage your own business. So you have to pay for your own retirement, you have to pay for your own tax, you have to manage that. So it's not as easy as having a job and having those benefits, having those tax obligations taken care of. The next con is that you can work anywhere and everywhere, and that sounds like a pro, and it is, but there's a downside to that. And the con of being able to work anywhere and everywhere is sometimes you're expected to work at any time. You know, there's always the temptation to work at any time, or have your clients demand that you work at any time. Denise, for example, you know, has clients in Australia, so when we're on a time zone in Asia, she might have to get up at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning to do a meeting that on the time zone here is completely reasonable, but for her, it's like, oh, has to get up really early in the morning, and then, you know, she ends up taking a nap. It's not a big deal, but for a lot of people, you know, that's a consideration as well. Another con is the lack of consistency and just having to recalibrate everywhere new place you go. Like, you know, this is a flip side of, you know, life being boring and stable here, is that, you know, everything's reliable. You know where you're staying, you know where you're working, you know how to get internet, you know where to eat. When you go to a new country or a new place or a new city, you might arrive there and like, oh, where can I get working Wi-Fi? You know, big things that digital nomads need: food, shelter, and Wi-Fi. You know, certain countries don't have good internet. You know, certain countries, certain cities might have a lack of internet. You need to always be considering, oh, is this place going to have a good connection? Am I going to find places to work from? You know, we've gone to cafes sometimes, and, you know, on the blogs online it says, yeah, they've got good internet, and you get there and there's just, oh, sorry, no internet. And I mean, if you've got a deadline, you've got a client meeting, yeah, it's not good to have that kind of unreliability. It's exciting sometimes, you know, not knowing, you arrive in a place and not knowing what's going to happen, but sometimes you just need it to be reliable, especially with work side of things. You need to know that you can get Wi-Fi, you can get set up, and you can get straight to work. And the last con is feeling like you need to have a base. And I think if there's anything that's like really common of any long-term nomads, is they end up going to the same places or staying in the same place for longer periods of time as they find places that they like, or maybe they just want to stay at home. And that's because you travel for long enough, you feel like you need a base, you need a home. And maybe some people don't feel the need for it, but a lot of people do. And so that home can be your home country, or it can be a place you find on the road. When we're traveling in Asia, you know, we use Chiang Mai as a base. It's a very reliable city. We know there's going to be good internet. We know our friends are there. It's great. It's a central location. But I think that's not necessarily a con, more so a consideration that as you're traveling, you'll probably want to find a base, or, you know, use your home as a base. So there you go, a few pros and cons of the lifestyle. If you can think of any more that I haven't touched on, or you got any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. And if you're still wondering, is this lifestyle for me? I don't know, the cons sound pretty bad, the pros sound good, just give it a go, you know what I mean? Like, if you've never been traveling before in your life, I'd definitely consider doing some overseas travel first and seeing if you like it, maybe doing some long-term travel, and just ease your way into it. You don't have to, you know, sell all your stuff and move to Thailand today, you know, and that's not what I'm saying at all. You know, and some people have done that, but you don't have to do that, you know? Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I'm starting to ask you guys for that now because I've been totally neglecting that. So if you like it, thumbs up, please. And coming up on the channel, I'm going to be going down to Melbourne. Denise is meeting with a client, so, you know, stay tuned to the channel. I've taken your feedback from the last vlog and hopefully going to put some of those things in the next one. So yeah, stay tuned, stay motivated, stay subscribed, and I'll see you guys on the next video.